Hi, this is Timothy Zahn, author of Thrawn, and you're listening to Star Wars Reactions. Good for you.
There's been an awakening. Have you felt it?
In 1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All of it.
One of resistance,
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
rebellion,
Rebellion is built on hope.
and redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you. Always.
Hello there. Welcome to Star Wars Reactions. We're back, and it sounds repetitive and almost sounds like a VeggieTale industry. Have we got a show for you? But we do, and it's going to be a great one. So let's get the introductions out of the way. The crazy guy talking to you right now, my name is Aaron Harris. Joining me is he's just an awesome co-host. He's the man, he's the myth, he's the legend. He is the Obi-Wan to my crazy Anakin. He is the David Motters. David, brother, what's up?
Oh man, I love it when you introduce me, man. You're so kind. I guess right, the old cliche or old return comment is, the check's in the mail, buddy. So
I'm saving them up right now.
That's right. Well, hey, I feel the same way towards you. I'm so thankful we're recording again, ready to react as always. And holy wow, we got some stuff to cover with this part 5 of Ahsoka. So let's do it.
Oh, do we ever? It is going to be an incredible show. We are discussing the 5th installment of Ahsoka. This episode was entitled Shadow Warrior, released September 12th of 2023 on Disney Plus and on limited release in certain theaters around the country. Written and directed by Dave Filoni for president. And I think we should upgrade that to Dave Filoni from Dave Filoni for president to Dave Filoni, Emperor of the Universe. And a wonderful one he would be. The Disney Plus synopsis of this episode basically reads as Ahsoka confronts her past while Hera and her allies undertake a rescue mission. And of course, her allies being, Chopper and Jason and Carva, everybody, but Chopper. Nothing gets done without the droid. So let's jump into our initial reactions. David, brother, why don't you kick us off with your initial reaction to Shadow Warrior?
Yeah, I guess when you and I put our notes together, we do these to help us, keep us organized, keep us on track. And I sat down to start typing, and I'm like, where do I start with this episode? There's so much stuff to cover from so many different angles about so many different things. But I thought in terms of initial reactions, I'd just start with conveying relief after the ending of part 4. You and I talked about, Anakin having Vader's lightsaber and Vader's theme played as that episode. I guess they call them parts. All these Disney Plus series have a different name: parts, episodes, Book of Boba Fett. Anyway, so books. But in this episode, I thought it might be just all like a trick, and just Anakin wanting to battle her as Vader from the Twilight of the Apprentice that you and I have talked about so many times. But it wasn't. We got all kinds of Clone Wars goodness. with Anakin and a younger Ahsoka, and what appeared to be the Battle of Teth, from the Clone Wars movie in 2008, right? You and I reviewed that again just a few episodes back. And later we get the Siege of Mandalore in live action. Unbelievable. I was blown away by seeing all those and the way that Filoni did it to make them look realistic, but I think also not break the bank with having all types of backgrounds and everything like that. He really shot it so neatly with that mist and those hues and stuff like that. It was really good. I would say this, another initial reaction to hear Ahsoka struggling with war and its consequences. And maybe that really supports why we've seen Ahsoka, so stoic and serious in these initial episodes. A lot of people were talking about that. They're like, where's the Ahsoka that we know? Or have grown to love, from the Clone Wars and other series. Again, so many different things to react to. Here's the deep mythological message of transformation, right? That was front and center in this episode. And, we can discuss it more in our talking point segment. We have it in there. I love the lightsaber action between Anakin and Ahsoka, Jason's growing Jedi powers, Chop, Aaron is in his glory with this series. I mean, just wow! Aaron, I'm so happy for you. I said it before the series started. Every time I see Chop, I'm happy for you. I just love seeing X-wings in this, flying all over. More of the Ghost, really getting to see that thing so much more, and then the Purrgil. I love them, and. So again, I thought I would stop there. I listed all that. There's way more I could react to, way more. And but I'm gonna turn it over to you and get your initial reactions.
All right, really good. So first off, let me just go ahead and clear the air. I called it. We got the Anakin Ahsoka fight. Knew that was coming. Was very, very happy to see that. As for the rest of it, and here's where, all the unpopular opinions start to filter in. It was good. I thought it was really good. But I thought last week's was better. To be perfectly honest, I thought part 4 was better. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved everything they did in the episode. I love the Ahsoka Anakin angle. I love the Jason Hera angle they did, the Purrgils. But, in the end, with all the hype that they did for this episode, with the theatrical release and everything, it was a little anticlimactic for me. It was, don't get me wrong, the character building in this was top notch. I mean, it is classic Filoni character building story. And I loved every moment of it. But in the end, and I really can't put a finger on it for me, on exactly what it is, but it just something was missing for me, and I can't figure out what it was. It honestly, I'm normally really good at not buying into hype and letting myself get overexcited because of hype and this and that. But I think I let myself buy in too much to the hype this week, and I think I got nipped for it in this. So that those are my initial reactions.
So this is where I tell everybody to send their hate mail to T.A. Harris 121079 at Twitter. Is it at gmail.com? Please, everybody, just
but here's the great. But we say this week after week. Yeah. There's going to be stuff you like. There's going to be stuff you don't like, but that's not a problem, though. You're not. There's so much Star Wars coming out. You're not going to like everything. And don't get me wrong. It's not that I did not like this episode. I really did like it. There was so much in this episode. Literally, I jumped off my couch when I saw Rex come on screen for the first time. Lost my mind. then when we saw Padawan Ahsoka, dude, it blew me away. I mean, there was so much about this that just blew my mind. And was just so incredible and so epic. It was still very much an epic episode. But I don't know what it was. There's just something that at the end of it, when I sat down, I was sitting there after I watched it because I had a really long day Tuesday when it premiered. And I was sitting on the couch after it went off, and I'm sitting there going, man, that was good. Something's missing. And I can't put my finger on what it is. I mean, you could offer me $1 million right now for me to tell you what the episode was missing and what it needed. And I can't tell you because I don't know. Huh. But it's just in my mind, there was just something. There was something missing, and I don't know what it is. And it's driving me crazy right now, to be honest, because on paper, if you going on paper, looking at everything that happened in this episode, there's no reason it should not rival Twilight of the Apprentice for me.
Yeah.
But there's something that's just not there for me, and I can't figure it out.
Well,
I don't know.
Maybe our discussion will kind of do it, or we can just go with the very, simple, obvious answer. There's not enough chop in it, but if there's more, you'd be happier. No,
there was plenty of chop in it. I mean, that was just it. The chop played a big role in this episode.
Yes, but no, I hear you, and I think and it is something I think about, and you and I've talked about when, we've been down at Disney together, or just talking and gone to cons together. It's this issue of, if we fawn and love everything, will even the listeners be like, well, Dave and Aaron, they just love everything and there's no critique, and it's just okay. It kind of goes back to Dan Z, right? He says, if you say yes to or what is it? How does Dan say it? Like, if you end up really liking something, and I guess maybe your yes be yes and your no be no, it means more, right? When you actually convey that you don't like certain things, and if you really do like something, it really conveys it more, versus, right, if you and I listen to somebody or they listen to us and we like everything, it's like, well, really, how much more this than that, so So I do like that, periodically we've had that. We talked about it with Visions, and stuff like that, and there's times where you and I, some episodes, I think, in Mandalorian season 3, there was a few there that you and I were like just scratching our head, like, wait, what? Where are we going here?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's healthy, and it's intellectually honest, right? And that's what you and I have talked about.
Yeah, and we always have been, and we always will be, straight shooters with us, with y'all, and I mean, and like I said, it's not that I did not like this episode. I've watched it probably half a dozen times since Tuesday night, not just for show prep, but just because I want to watch it, because I'm trying to figure out what's going on in my mind. But
right.
It was still a great episode. I'm struggling with it. And I don't know why. But to be perfectly honest, if you look at my track record, I was saying the same thing. I mean, when I first saw Rogue One, after my first viewing of Rogue One, I hated it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I don't hate it now. Before y'all really start throwing rocks at me, I don't hate it now. I absolutely love the movie. One of my favorites, my favorite of the Disney era when it comes to the movies. But it was the first movie we didn't have John Williams doing the soundtrack. And I'm a big soundtrack guy. Every movie I watch it twice, because the first time I watch it, I'm specifically listening to the music. The second time, I'm actually watching the story. And when I saw Rogue One the first time, it was a Star Wars movie. It was supposed to be a Star Wars movie. And instead of getting that big orchestral opening piece that we're used to in Star Wars. We get just a loud bump.
Yeah.
And then we get the ship flying in, and it just goes straight in the movie. And I'm sitting there going, it threw me so off. I was like, what? I was miserable the rest of the movie. And honestly, now Rogue One's one of my most listened soundtracks, to be honest, because I really have fallen in love with what Michael Giacchino did. Once I got it out of my head, it wasn't Williams, and I actually was able to listen. It really, I really appreciated the movie and the music, and it's one of my favorites now. So, I mean, by the end of this episode, by next week, by the end of the series, my opinion on this episode may totally change, and it may be a Twilight of the Apprentice for me. It may be a gold standard of Star Wars for me. But right now, I'm struggling.
Well,
and I'm just being human with you. I'm being honest. I'm a little struggle with. I'm on a little struggle bus with her.
Well, I think it's taking in the content too. It's taking all this in and thinking about it, and there's a lot, and we'll. Again, getting some episodes after it can help too, right? And looking at the episodes before it, and then really kind of looking back at it when the whole series is done. Because Filoni, he's been thinking about all this stuff for years and years and years. And but yeah, no, you're honest about it, and let's see if we can make some headway. As we go through this episode of ours.
Oh, absolutely. And we're going to have a great discussion on it. So let's just go ahead and jump into our talking points. Cause we got a huge, there's so much in this episode to discuss, and there's so much, Easter egg. I wouldn't even call them Easter eggs. There's so much, that happened in this that is paying homage to what came before and what came after.
Yeah.
And that we had so much going on. So there's just so much to wrap. We're going to cover as much of it as we can, but if we miss something, don't bury us. I think the biggest thing we need to talk about, and you alluded to it in your initial reactions, is the mythological messages that came throughout this episode, and the biggest, of course, being the transformation of Ahsoka throughout this episode. We see just a transformation in the character throughout this series so far, in the first 4 parts, and even in the beginning of this part, we have a very I almost want to say she's very melancholy. She's very straight, very straight faced. We never see her smile. We never see her laugh. We never see any kind of emotion from her that would, portray happiness, joy, or anything like that. But by the end of this episode, we see a complete and total transformation in the character of Ahsoka. We see smiles. We see even the images that we're seeing on board the ship with the Purgo. Everything is a lot brighter. It's like a page had turned. We were dark, now we're light. It reminded her transformation honestly reminds me a lot of Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. We went from Gandalf the Grey. He went through fire and battled as he fell, and went through his transformation and reemerged as the even more powerful Gandalf the White. So it reminded me of that, because we have Ahsoka, who always has wrapped in her gray cloak. She falls in battle, goes through these events in the world between worlds, and emerges brighter. We assume we're going to see more powerful, but she's then also covering herself and clothing herself in white. So you have that massive transformation in Ahsoka. And I want to hear from you, David. Talk to me about your thoughts on the mythological journey that she has gone on.
Right. I mean, you know, boy, you want to talk about even the transformation for us. What I started thinking about, Aaron, was going back to Rebels, to the episode where we first see Purrgil, and you and I'm going to give you the credit for it, because you really championed this, and people can go back, listen to those Rebels reactions, um, and Ezra becoming close, developing a relationship with the Purrgil. A lot of people were using the word filler, and Aaron came out guns a-blazing that there is no filler. And I'll tell you, by the end of season 4 of Rebels, and you're like, wait, what? And he's calling the Purrgil, and when they shoot out and take Ezra and Thrawn and help save Lothal, save Ezra's planet, um, talk about Aaron's point was like, mic drop. No, no filler there. You think about Mandalorian season 3, and if people remember, I'm sure they do, when we see little baby Yoda, Grogu, up in his little spot there in the N1 starfighter with Din, and he looks over right while they're in hyperspace, and what does he see? Purrgil flying through there, and we're like, wait, what? And so, it's when you look at mythological stuff and you look at Joseph Campbell's stuff, he talks extensively about the belly of the whale, and myth talks about it. And here's an example. We know that Dave Filoni is a student of Tolkien, right? He's talked about this. In fact, tonight before Aaron and I started recording, my son's like, Dad, we got to watch Lord of the Rings. And I'm looking up here to my left, and I'm looking at the extended editions that my brother sent me of the Lord of the Rings, and then I'm looking even further back here at the 3 Hobbit, all extended editions. And so my son and I are going to go through those, and he doesn't really remember anything about Lord of the Rings. He was too young when that stuff came out. So he'll see that transformation that Aaron just talked about. And look, seeing this whole thing of transformation, what I thought about too, Aaron? Again, going back to there where we first saw Purrgil, your comments absolutely come true. So not only at the end of Rebels, but here in Mandalorian season 3, here in Ahsoka, hopefully season 1. I'll throw that out there into the universe because I want there to be a season 2. The Purrgil are so front and center and so critical, and I see them. Obviously they, fast forward to the end when Hu Yang and Ahsoka in their ship go inside of the mouth of one of the Purrgil. But I feel like I'm getting it now too. I'm like, wait a minute. Filoni, I think, really sees the world between worlds as, in essence, a mythological place, the belly of the whale as well, right? Transformation goes on there, right? And then I flash back to Rebels again and some of the homework that Aaron and I did beforehand, and seeing Ezra and the stuff that Ahsoka is talking to him about no, you can't, you don't want to save Kanan, because he wanted to immediately go there and save him. And I think about the learning that goes on, the transformation of Ezra inside of the world between worlds. He gets his Kyber crystal in there, in one of the episodes. So I'm really, Aaron, seeing the world between worlds now as Dave Filoni's version of the belly of the whale. And I will say this, because I did put it in the notes. It was just it stands out, what she's wearing, just seeing Ahsoka smile, and even the wit. I put that in our show notes, and what I meant by that was when the mouth is closing, and I think Hu Yang's like, well, okay, they'll take us to where Ezra is, right? I have no idea. And he's like, what? And I could just hear C-3PO saying that, what? As a droid, and she's like, yeah, I have no idea, but it's better to be going someplace than nowhere. And I just thought it was so fun to kind of get back what we saw of Ahsoka when she was younger, smiling, having the fun banter and stuff like that, and the wit. So I really like seeing that between her and Hu Yang. So to see people transform, like that, I love it. I'm in the business of change. I'm trying to get people to transform and feel better. So when I see it on the screen like this, it is not just deeply mythological, but deeply moving. I love seeing this change in her. So yeah, I could talk for 5 more hours on this, but yeah, those are just just a few of my thoughts.
Perfect. I loved it because it was very, it was such an incredible growth for the character, and to see such a visible transformation in this episode was just, again, hats off to Filoni. Tipping my Carabast hat to him right now, on just telling a story about a character and changing the entire aspect of the character in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely astonishing. And I want to move on because I want to talk now about her journey, how she got there. When we left her in episode 4, as it ended, she was in the world between worlds, standing in front of Anakin. And then they begin to have a talk. He says he's there to finish her training. And she's like, well, it's a little late for that. And then he gives her a choice: live or die. And then, of course, the lightsaber comes out and the fight ensues. And I want to talk to you about that for a few moments, because that is the theme throughout their fight, throughout the flashbacks and everything, is the whole live or die. Are you going to choose to live, or are you going to choose to die? Are you going to choose to fight, or are you going to choose not to fight?
Yeah.
You have to make the choice. And we see Ahsoka kind of throughout the episodes to this point kind of has been willing to fight if she has to, but she doesn't want to if she doesn't have to. And we see and we see this. He gives her this ultimatum: you're going to live or you're going to die. It's up to you. You're going to pay. You're either going to choose to live or you're going to choose to die. And your actions, everybody's actions in life, you're choosing something. And this was a huge thing for her. Talk to me, David. What were your thoughts when Anakin gave her that choice, and your thoughts on how that relates to what she's going through and what she has to do?
Well, if you think about it, right, I listen to a lot of different podcasts, Star Wars, I know everyone's shocked, and obviously do this one with Aaron. And one of the things you could hear is people were really struggling with, there's Lucy, my dog, were really struggling with the way she was, very stoic, very reserved. She looked miserable, right? And just as you were describing that, Aaron, one of the things I started to think about was it almost felt like Ahsoka was slowly dying. It's kind of like, yes, I got to go prevent Thrawn from starting another war, but it's just like she doesn't even look like she's enjoying life at all, and of course, like we said, we got a lot of questions about her and Sabine, and I guess she walked away from Sabine, and the tension and conflict there. So yeah, it really, I love this message from Anakin, basically really forcing her to think about this issue. Are you going to live? You're alive. You've got time. You can do this. You can make a difference, and do that. Now I'm just flashing back to the end of Return of the Jedi, and Anakin's inside there, and you want to talk about deciding to live, when he picks up the Emperor and throws him over into that chasm. You want to talk about a choice to live, even though it ends up ending his life, he does continue to live on in the Force. And so Another thing that struck me, buddy, and how deep this message is right now at this time is just the number of people hurting across our country and who see the world, see the United States, all the struggles, all the problems, and they want to give up. A lot want to give up in the form of suicide, right? And so this is a big topic of conversation for all of us in our behavioral health team where I work and working with our patients. And these are even, Aaron, and people who, these are individuals from all different states who have retired here to Central Florida. They have worked very hard. They've saved money to be able to do this. So these are people who I kind of visualize like Ahsoka. She's worked hard. She's trained hard under Anakin. But just because you've done that, it doesn't mean that as your life progresses, you don't get your butt kicked and you're like, I'm done. I just stick a fork in me, I'm done. And I love this message at this time because that's our argument in behavioral health. No, we're not going to do a permanent answer to a non-permanent issue, right? And that's what I hear Anakin saying. You're gonna die. That's a permanent issue. That's a permanent way to go here. How about live and continue to make a difference in the Star Wars universe? And so again, parallels a lot of what I'm seeing in my professional career and what I'm seeing here in the United States and the world. So it's very timely, buddy. And again, very, very deep, a very needed conversation. And that's what, I'll go to Jim Valvano's famous speech, the Never Give Up speech. He says it, don't give up, don't ever give up. And he was riddled with cancer and was miserable and felt sick and wanted to puke his guts out on national television. And he told everybody listening, don't ever give up. And so I see the same message in Anakin, right, buddy?
Oh, you definitely do, because and oh, man, that really hit home, because I've had recently I've known several that have taken made the choice, and it has been rough to say the least. And it is one of those things that, I don't even know what to say at this point.
Well, I knew I went super deep, and look, we've had some of that here in the Ocala area. Aaron's down in the Lakeland area. We've had some people take their lives, and just like Aaron said, it's like, goodness gracious, that's a really, really permanent thing. And so my work's been cut out for me when I'm talking to people in my office. Again, these are highly successful people too, driven, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to be. You can, anybody. When you see this world, you're like, man, I'm kind of done. I don't want to do this anymore. But I wanted to bring that up. We're kind of doing a psychology corner here, right in the middle of before I get to the psychology corner, right, Aaron?
Oh no, exactly. And I'm we truly, we really are. And it's, I'll I don't want to, I can't, don't think I'm ready for that kind of discussion, because it did hit home, because we've had, I know people personally that have done this recently, and even people, someone in our Star Wars family has recently done it too. And I'm going to say this, and then we're going to take a break just to compose ourselves and move on. But if you are even thinking of that way, please don't. There are people that love you, that care for you, that are here for you, whether we know you or not. You can reach out to us. You can reach out to anybody. The National Hotline, Suicide Prevention Hotline, 988. They're there to help as well. Get help, please. And help is always available. at any time. So we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here. We're talking the 5th episode of I was going to say the 5th episode of Star Wars Reactions, but no, it's actually the 142nd episode of Star Wars Reactions. We're talking the 5th episode of Ahsoka, Shadow Warrior. Now, let's talk about these flashbacks that she has, that Ahsoka's having while battling Anakin, or training with Anakin, you could say. She ends up, the first, of course, in the world between worlds battling, that he slices the bridge out from under her, because she's like, well, you've taught me everything. And he's like, well, I haven't taught you everything. And next thing you know, he cuts the bridge out and she falls. And she falls through it. When she hits the ground, it's dirty, it's dusty, it's cloudy all around it. And all of a sudden, all these clone troopers start running past her, and it's all in phase 1 armor as they're just flying by her. And of course, the Battle of Teth it ends up being. And Ahsoka is not the Ahsoka we see from the series anymore. It is Padawan Ahsoka Tano that we are used to seeing from the early seasons of the Clone Wars. And it was, I gotta say, that was quite a surprise for me. To see, that's the last thing I expected to see, was a young Ahsoka Tano anywhere in this show. But it happened, and it was fantastic. And the young lady that played her, I'm trying to remember her name right now. Oh my gosh, Greenblatt, Ariana Greenblatt was her name. And if you recognized her, if she looked familiar to you, that's because she was just in the Barbie movie. But if you're a Marvel's fan, she was in Infinity War.
Yes.
Avengers Infinity War. She played young Gamora in that movie as well. So she's used to play, she plays young people. Young Gamora, young Ahsoka. But she did a fantastic job just capturing Ahsoka and in this youngness. She had the old jumpsuit on and everything, the green sabers. I mean, it was to a T. Wonderful. And of course, Anakin, they had Hayden Christensen de-aged and in his early Clone Wars outfit that we would saw in the series. Then we saw from there they went to Ryloth, and I was looking throughout the background because on Ryloth, this is of course where Hera gets Chopper. So I was looking for Chopper in the background, but I did not see him. He was hiding from me. But again, a little older, or not much older, but same time frame. But we see her struggling with battle. We see her comforting a clone trooper that is injured, and it breaks her. And we see her there just, distraught about this injured clone trooper. And they begin to have this discussion about war. Are we doing the right thing? And all of this. And then we end up at the Siege of Mandalore.
Yeah.
Oh, you talk about chills. Dude, that was incredible. When she changed, when the transition was made and she was in that Siege of Mandalore outfit, I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's her outfit. And as I was about to say Siege of Mandalore, we see one of the Maul troopers.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, it is. Like, then we see a couple of the 332nd troopers with the painted Ahsoka helmets come running through. And I'm like, oh, this is mind blowing. This is incredible. and of course, then we end up back in the world between worlds. But let's talk to me about the transitions, David. What did you think of going to each of these battle scenes, and how you felt, what your thoughts are, and what do you think he was trying to show her going through these 3 battle scenes?
Well, I think, one of the things I thought about was kind of part of our discussion in our previous episodes of covering these different episodes, parts of Ahsoka, which is, should we encourage people to watch all 4 seasons of Rebels and the Clone Wars, maybe season 7 of the Clone Wars before watching this? And I'm each episode that gets further in, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I want people to, if they've watched the first episode, no, stop, go back, watch all that. All of this will be so much richer. Like I said, you and I generally know that that's the Battle of Teth. I heard some people maybe thought it was the Battle of Christophsis, but it's not the green glass, Christophsis. They're on sand, and you hear her say this is one of our first battles, not the first battle, which was Christophsis. I guess I think it is this process of, still this whole thing about, almost like Anakin saying, hey, look, you've gone through all this. Yes, and you and I have talked about this in previous reactions, all our iterations of our podcast, about how Ahsoka is just thrust into war. I guess even Anakin mentions it. When I was training under Obi-Wan, it was generally a time of peace, he said,
Yeah.
right?
He said we were peacekeepers.
Right. Thank you. And so, she's thrust in at 14, 15, and no wonder why she's the way she is, and just slowly but surely doing this. Look, again, here's another psychology corner. I've worked with military men and women and the trauma there. They don't like to talk to civvies, right? Civilians about all this. And military men and women have told me, why? If I talk to civilians about it, what's it going to do for them? They're not going to get it. Is it going to help them? It's not going to help them feel better. And so, war is just so traumatizing. And I think, sometimes we, in the animated form or something like that, it's kind of like, oh yeah, this clone trooper died, this stormtrooper died, this rebel guy died, whatever. But war is, you can go from that to Full Metal Jacket or Platoon, okay? And it's right, this is serious stuff. And I do love this conversation. And I think what I take from it, buddy, is, when you ask, what is this about? I think it's him saying, hey, look, you've been through a lot. You've made it through. You do care about people. We are not perfect as Jedi, right? But we're still trying, And, that's what I've been trying to tell my kids is, look, we're people of faith. We're imperfect. We do things wrong. But we're still trying. And I tell my kids, we're going to keep helping others. And that's the message I see from Anakin. Ahsoka, don't die, keep living, and keep helping others. That's why you're here. Feeds in perfectly to my psychology corner theme for this entire series. It's just the meaning of life, right? And there's a little hint there for people, but yeah. So those, again, I can talk for hours on this, but I guess pulling back and getting non-serious, I just loved seeing, like we said, and we'll hear it a little bit later when one of our good friends, Liberty, we listened to her voicemail talking about the changes in Ahsoka's lightsaber. I love that, and that's so cool to see. And seeing Hayden as a live-action Anakin with a different outfit on than he does in Episode 3, right? And so I was just like, I loved just seeing live action. And just like Aaron said a minute ago, when they were, in Mandalore and Hayden Christensen is Anakin's like, I don't recall this war. And she says we parted ways, just to see him on Mandalore. Oh my gosh. I was like, what? It was so cool. So just from a fan perspective, it was so cool to see these transitions through. You and I and our listeners know where they were. And so there's that fun level. There's also an incredibly serious level here that Anakin's trying to convey.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was, there's so much packed into those scenes, um, that are that means so much. Um, yeah, and I would be dismissed if if we advanced from this stage without mentioning the fact that we see Captain Rex twice
Mm.
in his Phase 1 armor and in his Phase 2 armor, which uh, I love Rex. Rex is my of all the clones. Rex and Tech are my favorites.
Yeah.
I have a soft spot for Rex, and it felt really good to see him. I hope we get to see more of him as we see. I hope we get to see older Rex, but I don't know. We'll see. But this, I can honestly say this is not the version of Rex I expected to see.
Well, right, but in the credits, you see they credited Tim Morrison. That's his voice.
Yeah.
I thought like you said, would we see him pull that helmet off? But that's his voice. That's Tim Morrison.
Well,
So.
you do see him. You do see him at couple clone troopers in one scene without a helmet, but they're in the distant background, and you can tell it's Morrison.
Okay,
So,
gotcha.
which I thought was awesome. So, all right, well, a lot more happened in this episode besides what Ahsoka was dealing with. We got Hera and Jason and Carson Teva on the planet Cetos looking for Ahsoka and Sabine. Huang is there as well. And one thing I want to mention, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this particular item, and it's not even in our notes, but I'm going to mention it anyway. When Hera finds Huang and he's standing on the ledge and he's holding Sabine's helmet, and and Hera's like, Huang, and he's like, I told them to stay together. I told them to stay. Just the holding that helmet, they have done, and Star Wars has done so much in giving human emotion and reactions to these droids that and this was the perfect example of that. We have Chopper reaching up and holding Hera's hand in Rebels. We have this right here. Huang in the helmet. I mean, it's just the emotion being portrayed by what's supposed to be a droid is just it's incredible. It's not like anything else you see anywhere in science fiction, anywhere. So I wanted to throw that out there. Kudos to the Disney team on that, the Lucasfilm team there, and to David Tennant. My Lord, David Tennant is playing Huang, voicing Huang perfectly, and voiced him perfectly in this. David Tennant is no stranger to portraying emotions with his words, being the 10th Doctor in the Doctor Who franchise, my favorite Doctor, which I mentioned a couple episodes ago. So, hearing the emotion coming from Tennant's voice in that scene took me back to Doctor Who. Honestly, I heard I could close my eyes. I hear the emotion in the voice, and all I'm seeing is David Tennant as the Doctor with his head against the wall listening, because on the other side of the wall in another dimension is Rose Tyler. That's all I'm seeing at that point. And I'm like, gosh, you're breaking me here, guys. We're talking about a totally different franchise now. But and I'm spent way longer on this than I wanted to, but I just wanted to say kudos to them.
Well, I could talk for a half hour on that scene if you ain't, but we'll move on.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, and we're running out of time here. I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about Hera's situation, because of course she is on Cetos on an unauthorized mission. She left her command and her fleet, brought Carson's X-Wings with her, and came out to help Ahsoka, and now they're searching for Ahsoka and Sabine. And this is something that, of course, you're going to get in trouble for. She disobeyed the order. She was told not to worry about it, not to deal with it, and she ends up going anyway. And she gets the message from the communicator, has the conversation with Mon Mothma, basically telling her that the fleet is on their way, and their orders are to bring her Ahsoka back to the Republic to basically face the Senate committee. And basically, if you've ever sat in front of a Senate committee, that means you're not going to have a good day. And they were not going to have a good day if it would have happened. So she's now dealing with the fact that, Mon Mothma pretty much told her, they're going to take your command away. Yeah. If they don't like what you say, they're going to take your command away. If you have no evidence, you have no reason for going, you can't prove that you weren't just following your emotion to look for Ezra, you're going to permanently lose your command. And she's now dealing with Sabine missing, and now she's dealing with a fight on the home front as well. So she has got a lot on her plate, which is nothing new for Hera Syndulla.
Right.
What do you think of Hera's the plight of Hera Syndulla at this point, David?
Well, I think it's what Filoni's trying to do here, right, is bring in tension. There's a cost. It's palpable, right? And that's really, you see with Carson Teva's role, kind of saying, hey, he's, at first when I watched this, I'm like, gosh, he's kind of annoying. He keeps bugging her, and she's trying to listen to Jason, and they're trying to figure this out, and looking for Ahsoka, looking for Sabine, and you've got Mon Mothma, you've got, Carson Teva and all this, trying to figure out what to do, what to say, etc. And, I don't know. I guess the way that I think about it is, for her command is not as important as being space mom and taking care of the people she loves. And, the other thing that we're seeing is that the whole New Republic anyways, the whole government, we saw it in Mandalorian season 3, it's a mess. So if you're Hera, you know what? Go with your gut, do the right thing, let Mon Mothma deal with all these people and save the people and help the people who are really doing the big battle. While all these people are bogged down in bureaucratic crap, you're out trying to deal with Thrawn and the big issues. So, and Filoni showed that, right? We saw that when Hera called out Senator Ziono. Were you in the war? No. Okay, so you just sat it out, huh? Yep. She called him on the mat. So, and one other thing I'll mention about this is that, yes, she's in a tight spot, but I know she makes the right decisions, and she will. Is a mention of Senator Organa, right? We heard that. And so there's a little Princess Leia a mention as well, but maybe she can pull a few strings and help our heroes. But no, I'm really loving how Mary Elizabeth Winstead is playing Hera and how Filoni's using her. But Hera's going to come through. She'll do the right thing.
Oh, she definitely will, and it's going to be fun to see how that plays out, because what is Star Wars without a little political intrigue? So right. The other thing I want to discuss and bring up is Jason. because Jason plays a key role in the rescue of Ahsoka. And we begin to see something that a lot of us hoped for, in the fact that we begin to see that he did inherit his father's skills.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know how deep they go yet. We haven't seen that, but obviously he is extremely force sensitive. And it is well played out in this episode, especially for those who've never seen Rebels and don't know who his father is. We see that Huang and Carson Teva, they do a great job of a quick 2 or 3 lines of dialogue that basically fill you in on the story. Because Carson's like, we're really doing this because of a kid? And they're like, well, and Huang's like, oh, well, he's got powers. He's special. His dad was a Jedi, Kanan Jarrus. And then Carson's like, oh, all right, guys, let's go. That's all he needed to hear. The kid's father's a Jedi, so obviously he's connected to the Force. But seeing him sitting there, reaching out through the Force, he hears. He's the one that hears the lightsabers in the distance as Ahsoka and Anakin are fighting in the world between worlds. He can hear the lightsabers. He feels it. He senses it. He knows something is wrong out at sea. And it is really, you know what? It just hit me. I know what this episode was missing.
Ooh.
When he is sitting at the end of the episode, when he is sitting on the cliff with Chop, waiting for them to come back, I wanted to see Kanan. That's what was missing.
Oh.
I wanted to see Kanan's Force ghost next to his son.
Ooh, boy. We're getting deep again here, brother.
that is to me, that's it. That is what was missing from this episode for me.
Wow, that makes sense.
If Kanan would have just, even if he didn't, even if Jason didn't see him or acknowledge him, just to see him standing behind him, looking like a proud father.
Man.
That would have broken me right then and there. It's breaking me. Just the image of it in my head right now is breaking. It's causing me to tear up.
Hey, listen, Christina Down Under's listening to this, and I know she's tearing up because I'm tearing up right now thinking about it. So
yeah, it's incredible. That's what this episode's missing for me.
you nailed it, brother. Now let me piggyback. Now you asked a question a minute ago about Hera's situation with the New Republic.
Yes.
I think this is the bigger issue, right? So, like, if you ask me, well, Dave, what do you think about Hera's situation with a son who is showing Force abilities, and she saw what happened to Kanan, and of course him dealing with Order 66 and having to keep and hide and all that is, I think for her that's the more daunting thing, right? Is, oh my gosh, my son wants to do this, and it's not an easy road to go. And
it's not even Kanan, but look at Kanan, look at her experiences with Ezra.
Right.
Look at her experiences with Ahsoka.
Right.
All three of their journeys has been a journey of pain, suffering, sacrifice.
Yeah.
What mother wants that for her child?
Right. And I was trying to think of something else here as we were talking about this, and this is I'm going to steal this from Greg McLaughlin in his RoboBase Card podcast, and so I'm trying to stay up with all theirs, him and Greg Cass. And again, Greg, I'm stealing this from you. It's what he said. Yes, you definitely want to see Jason develop his Force abilities, but not go to Luke's school because of what happens later on with Kylo. And I was like, ooh, yes, develop your skills. But
Didn't I say that a couple weeks ago?
Did you say that too?
I think I said, whether I said it on the show or I may have said it to somebody else.
Okay.
I want to see. I just don't want to see Jason. I think I said it on the show. I just don't want to see Jason end up at Skywalker Academy because we all know what happened to everybody there.
Yeah. I guess he needs to train under Ahsoka, I guess, now that she's transformed, So, yeah. I think even if you probably did say it, and if not, I think we're all thinking it too, right? Knowing what happens and what we see Kylo Ren do. So, but anyways, really cool to see this and his role and really the team-based aspect, right? I thought about this. Hera's role, Hugh Ang's role, Carson Teva's, Jason, Chop. Chop was the one who ends up, sending the coordinates, out to them, once Ahsoka starts to reappear under the water. So Chop's playing a role. And I like that. I love the team, just like our team back in the original trilogy of, humans and droids coming together to win the day. So that's another part that I loved about this episode was all of them getting these key parts, including, Jason and Chop.
Oh, they definitely did. And it worked out. And I'll say it again. This series has felt probably the most Star Warsy to me out of everything we've gotten. And it's all felt like Star Wars to me, but this truly has felt like my Star Wars because it's so Rebels.
Yeah.
This is so Rebels, and I'm loving it. I'm just loving it. Da 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 da. I'm loving it. All right. We're going to wrap up our talking points here with the Purrgil. Because as you mentioned earlier, as I've preached from day one, and I started podcasting, fillers do not exist in Star Wars. They always tie back in a certain way, just like the Purrgil did in Rebels, just like they are again now. They mean something. They are significant to the story. And here we go. So after Ahsoka comes back from the world between worlds and experiences her light transformation, she then figures out how she can get to Sabine and rescue Sabine. Because of course we know Sabine is on board the giant hyperdrive ring with Balon Skull, Shin Hati, and of course Morgan Elsbeth on their way to the other galaxy to find Grand Admiral Thrawn. And she figures out they're going to do it the same way Ezra got there. Purrgil.
Yeah.
And of course, we see her go out. We see her come out on the wing of the ship, communicates through the Force with the largest of the Purrgil, who basically says, hop in my mouth and let's go.
Yeah.
And that, of course, that's where pretty much the episode ends. Hera and the Ghost stay with the Rebel fleet, or the Republic fleet now, that have come to take her back to face the Senate committee, as the Purrgil and Ahsoka jump away. Fantastic. It was a good ending to the episode. But tell me, dude, what were your feelings on the Purrgil and their role in the story?
Well, I really love them. I love these live action versions too, and how they sound, how they move. I love the slowness of their back tentacles and how they move, I love that. And how Filoni's doing it and how the the brilliant creative people at ILM are creating them, animating them, however the heck they do it. But I think for me, it was such a crescendo of building up. And, as our listeners know, you're the music aficionado. I've learned a lot from you. But I'll tell you, I don't think I did not notice Kiner's music here. And I think that combined with Ahsoka smiling, the wit I mentioned, her and Hu Yang, looking out at adventure, the light, like you said, she's dressed lighter. You see the sunlight coming in on them, before the Purgle, that one closes its mouth. And what I thought about was, I put it in the show notes here, is I thought about Empire Strikes Back, Lando and Chewie at the very end there saying, we're going to go find Han, I promise. We'll find him, I promise. And here's Ahsoka saying she'll find, Sabine, saying that to Hera and, Chop and Jason and stuff like that. So it was so moving. And, I'd watched this a few times. I need to watch it so many more times. But, I was saying, oh my gosh, like I want to go. Can I go with you? Like when Hera's like, well, we got to, stay behind and stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, no, don't go, And so I pulled this. I was trying to remember someone posted this on the CWK cafe, and it was a quote, between Moyers and Campbell, right? And I've watched. I don't know if you watched that, Aaron. It was, I think Bill Moyers. I've mentioned this maybe I don't know how long ago on our podcast. He sat down with Joseph Campbell, I think, twice. Once out at Skywalker Ranch, and once at the New York Museum for Natural History, I think. Of course, Bill Moyers was famously a CBS News reporter. Joseph Campbell. And I'm guessing this is probably from The Power of Myth, a book. I was looking around at my bookshelf here. I got it somewhere. But it says here, Moyers, what's the mythological significance of the belly? And Campbell says, the belly is the dark place where digestion takes place and new energy is created. The story of Jonah and the whale is an example of a mythic theme that is practically universal, of the hero going into a fish's belly and ultimately coming out again transformed. Again, Ahsoka going into the world between worlds, that's the belly of the whale. And Moyers asks, why must the hero do that? And Campbell's response is, it's a descent into the dark. Psychologically, here's Joseph Campbell speaking my language. Psychologically, the whale represents the power of life locked in the unconscious. And that's what I was feeling. I'm like, here, Anakin's whole message through those battles, you've gone through so much, what are you going to choose? You're going to live or you're going to die? And here is the whale talking about the power of life, it being that kind of this mythological representation of life. And her going on this adventure, the smile, she's choosing life, right? That's where, again, Dave Filoni's reading of Campbell of all kinds of mythology is playing right out. And like I said, these things are so emotionally powerful because they're so universal across our planet, right? Deep stories. And that's why, like, Aaron, when you mentioned that you're enjoying this more than others, like I said, I love Andor. But when I first started watching Star Wars, it's this mythic adventure, and I get what Tony Gilroy's doing, and I'm going to love season 2. I'm going to love the heck out of it. And they're such a key part of helping the heroes win the battle. But it's these deep mythological tales that resonate with us, and they have throughout time, So I just wanted to mention that and how the way it ended, I was in tears. The music, seeing Ahsoka back, and saying, and just watching their tails open and this go boom, right, Aaron? One other thing I was going to mention, I think why it's powerful, I was also thinking as these Purgle are coming up around those Vesper class New Republic ships, as you see them and they're getting ready to make the jump, I was thinking about Return of the Jedi and Ewoks and how nature and animals are going to be what overcomes big empire, the machine, right? And 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 that's what I think about with these Virgo. Here's Morgan Elsbeth on the Eye of Sion. You mentioned it a minute ago. They're on this big, massive hyperspace ring. Well, here comes Ahsoka in an actual creature, and they're gonna be a part of helping them win the day. So again, very George Lucas-y there too. So okay, I'll shut up. I have so much to cover.
There is so much to cover, so much to do, so much to talk about. So yeah, that's going to wrap up our talking points. So here's what we're going to do. We got our final reactions coming up. We got a psychology corner. We have your voicemails and messages with our thoughts on Shadow Warrior. We're going to share those. Before we do, we're going to take a quick break. So hang out with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron, David here. We're going to go ahead and jump into our final reactions for Ahsoka's episode 5, Shadow Warrior. We just ended all of our talking points. So let's go ahead and jump into these final reactions. For me, like I said at the beginning, there was something missing in it. And as David predicted through the discussion, I figured it out. Fantastic episode. There is so much to be, as a Star Wars fan, there's so much to be thankful for in this episode. There was so much of it that I loved. Another killer Kevin Kiner soundtrack. Chopper. Ahsoka vs. Anakin Part 2. Chopper. Rex, Captain, 501st Legion. And Chopper. The Ghost and Chopper. Jason inheriting Kanan's Force abilities. Did I mention Chopper? I mean, there was so much there that I loved. And I hate, I hate that I bought into the hype the way I did. I'm normally a lot better at that than personally than I am. And I hate that I did that. And I'm going to have to double my efforts going forward. But it was a great episode. Fantastic. I have no problem now saying, after talking this out with you, David, I have no problem saying definitely a great, fantastic episode. I loved everything about it. It definitely is going down as probably one of my favorites from all of these shows overall. It definitely has a story to tell and tells it well. And yeah, so that's my final reactions there. And the discussion did it for me. So David, how about you, brother? Tell me about your final reactions.
Yeah, well, we've tried to unpack a lot tonight. We said at the beginning, there's so much in this amazing episode. It cannot all be done in one podcast episode. So look, I imagine Aaron and I coming back to this episode quite a bit. Like we go back to Twilight of the Apprentice from Rebels season 2. We've been going back to that for years, and I can really see this one because of how deep it is mythologically. There's so much there. After thinking about this episode, I think my biggest takeaway is Ahsoka's transformation that will propel her to, complete this mission. And this piece of her continuing hero's journey. I think that's the big takeaway in the role also, obviously, in Anakin getting her to choose to live and to continue her hero's journey. And I'll just say this to wrap up final reactions for me. I'm just thankful I'm along for the ride with Aaron and our listeners.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm grateful for that too. To have you at my side and have the listeners with us on this journey, because there is not a better time to be a Star Wars fan.
Whew,
the amount of Star Wars we're getting now is payoff for our sacrifices since the original Star Wars came out in 1977. All of our patience, all of our passion, it's now paying off
Yeah.
in a big old way. So, yeah. So, perfect. That closes out our final reactions. Let's jump into some listener reactions. Here we go.
The name's Rex. Now let's check some emails.
Hello, Aaron and David. This is Liberty. I almost have no words as I am trying to impart my thoughts to you. I just finished my second viewing of Shadow Warrior, and my only thoughts in my head, impressions that I have, are just the power of this Filoni-based universe and his relationship he has built between Ahsoka and Anakin. Just wow. This is definitely a dream come true for all Clone Wars fans, Rebels fans. This episode was the ultimate in what I will proudly call fan service. Again, if this is fan service, give me more. I'm here for it. Just blown away by the cinematic look of this episode. He managed to cram so much into such a little space. Just every single thing. The beginning, the opening sequence, Hu Yang holding Sabine's helmet, the pain that you could feel, the entire sequence with Ahsoka and Anakin, just amazed to be put right back into that universe of the Clone Wars. Every little detail was there. Rex's voice, every single detail from the fights, the Darth Maul Mandalorians in the Siege of Mandalore, the change of Ahsoka's lightsabers. We got to see her as a young child with the initial green lightsaber. Then we got to see her with the dual blue lightsabers that were from Anakin. Just wow. I can't even begin to describe how this episode has made me feel. So grateful for Dave Filoni. There's just so much. I could go on for hours about this episode, which was only, 45 minutes long. But had to get my thoughts out there to you guys. So may the Force be with you.
Hey, David. Hey, Aaron. This is Robert here from Florida, calling in and just leaving you my reaction to part 5 of Ahsoka. You know, I'm a type of person, whenever I watch any type of movie, I look to see if I'm entertained. Am I going to fall asleep during the movie or show? Or am I going to be engaged, and am I going to continue watching moment after moment? And I will say part 5 was very much a throwback. It kind of threw me back into the theaters in 2005, where Christian Hayden and Ewan McGregor were fighting, at the end, where in episode 3, it kind of threw me back to that, of the excitement of seeing Anakin Skywalker on the screen as Anakin, even though he was fighting Ahsoka, and I know it was, quote unquote, not a real fight, but that's my thought about it. But I thought it was really good to see him back on the screen. Everything else could have been horrible, I'll just say it, but that to me made it for me, made my night. And this is one of the episodes I will definitely be rewatching. Love you guys. Keep up the great work.
Aaron, David, Dark B. With my reaction to part 5 of Ahsoka Shadow Warrior. Now, we discussed in short form before that you fellas know and are aware that I follow Star Wars spoilers. I just don't share them, lest I'm asked. So it turns up that the 3 battles that Ahsoka is dropped into in the world between worlds. The first one was Teth. The second one was Ryloth. both when she was about 14 years old, still in the first year of the Clone Wars. And then the third one when she was 17 years old on the Siege of Mandalore. Yeah, I knew about them for a while and was sitting on them. And it turns out that Ahsoka has a deleted scene. If you ain't aware, we were supposed to be shown that Darth Vader, Anakin, took out Obi-Wan on Mustafar. That the Force was showing Ahsoka made the right choice to leave the Jedi Order, because in this deleted scene, it was Ahsoka standing in front of a fallen Obi-Wan that takes out Darth Vader. So it was a Force showing her she made the right choice. But my reactions to, I follow spoilers, but I am able to take that part of my imagination and turn that part off, or that part of my brain, for them spoilers I follow, to sit down and watch with great wonder every next story that we're told. So part 5, there was so much of it just absolutely floored me, and it is so full of so much. And at times had me wiping some tears away, in a good way. Yeah, that was my reaction to part 5. Looking forward to listening to other listeners' thoughts and reactions just like mine. And onward to part 6 next week. Till then, may the Force be with you, fellas. See you on the radio.
Oh, man. Those were awesome. Those, thank you, Liberty and Robbie and Rural Farm Boy, for sending in those messages. We also did get a message from Chris Colnane on Instagram. He left us a comment simply saying, "I loved it," which, I can't say I blame him now. So thank you so much for sending in your comments and sending in the voicemails. Any thoughts, David?
Yeah, I just was going to kind of touch base on each one, because, it means a lot to us when people send stuff in. It takes time and effort. And I know so many podcasts want people to text, tweet, get on Facebook and do this. And and so it means a lot. And, for Liberty, I loved her thoughts on the Filoniverse, and I agree with her. This was a dream for Clone Wars fans. She talked about Ahsoka's lightsaber changes, and I really enjoyed that as well. And she even talked about the cinematic aspect of this episode. I couldn't agree more. And it doesn't feel like we're trapped in the what is it, the stage, what is it called, why am I blocking on the name of the screen and the stage and stagecraft? I know it was created by Stage.
The
volume. There we go.
The volume.
Yeah. Doesn't feel like we're trapped there. And so, like Liberty said, the cinematic aspect is definitely there. And, she said, "May the Force be with us." Well, may the Force be with you, Liberty. We love you. And you're just such a great, Star Wars friend of ours. And Robbie, I like what he said too, Aaron, about just looking to see, is this going to entertain me? And I really liked how he said it took him back to 2005 with Hayden up on the big screen, battling you and McGregor with the lightsabers. And Robbie says he loves us. Well, we love you, buddy. And RFB, man, he's that guy he's got a lot of insight, man. He's got a lot of stuff going on. And I'm not into spoilers as much, but he keeps them, on the down low and just looks to see what comes about. But he mentioned a few points being in tears, and I think RFB heard us that there was points there for me, especially when those Purrgil were getting ready to jump and Ahsoka's smiling and they're really heading off for adventure. And then for Chris, Chris has been such a good guy and such a, he's I've interacted with him online, and I think you have too, Aaron, and just such a good guy. Just even a little comment like that, we love it and appreciate it. So just big thanks to Liberty and, Robbie, RFB, Rural Farm Boy, and to Chris.
Oh, absolutely. Well said, my friend. Thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts. And of course, anybody can do that. You can either leave us comments or send us direct messages on any of our social medias. We are on Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter, at SW Reactions Pod, Instagram, Pinterest, and Tumblr, where you can find all of our show notes at SW Reactions, and of course, email swreactions at I messed that up. swreactions@gmail.com. Excuse me. You can send all your love there and all your thoughts, all your reactions to any of those places. Or, of course, you can leave up to a 90-second voicemail like Liberty and Robbie Carabast.
Best.
There it is.
There it is.
So you can leave up to a 90-second voicemail message with your reactions on our SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com/Star Wars Reactions. David, brother.
Yes, sir.
Are you ready for your psychology corner, my friend?
Oh, gosh. Yes, I know. Forgive me for interrupting you. I'm already so excited to go over it. And I tell you, this episode of Ahsoka fits in perfectly with the entire theme of meaning or purpose in life. So, okay. So each time I start the psychology corner, I try to do a quick little recap. So last week I started to share some possible answers to the meaning of life. If our listeners did listen to that, they heard that, Dr. Sigmund Freud said that probably the main meaning of life is to seek pleasure. Dr. Alfred Adler took a different route and thought that the main goal, the purpose of life is to seek power. And then Dr. Viktor Frankl said that the greatest task is to find meaning, to find what that is versus pleasure or power. And last week I said I'd go over more, insights from Dr. Viktor Frankl in terms of what he saw as sources of meaning. Now, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, which he wrote after going through 4 concentration camps in 3 years, roughly 1942 to 1945, when World War II ended, he suggested 3 possible sources in that book. One, being work, not just everyday work, but doing something significant, through that work. Another possible source of meaning is love, caring for another. And the third one is courage during difficult times. And I grabbed the book, I got it here in front of me, and I'm in the foreword to the book, and I wanted to share just a little bit more about courage and what Dr. Viktor Frankl said about it. And he says, look, a person may remain brave, dignified, and unselfish, or in the bitter fight for self-preservation, he may forget his human dignity and become no more than an animal. And the person who wrote the foreword to this says that Dr. Frankl concedes that only a few prisoners of the Nazis were able to do the former. But he goes on to say, quote, and this is from Frankl, even one such example of, a person remaining brave, dignified, courageous is sufficient proof that humans' inner strength may raise them above their outward fate. And so, I thought that was so good to hear that. And again, we're just kind of starting to get into, different possible sources of meaning. Now, I do want to say this, and this kind of ties in with courage during difficult times. Frankl talks about suffering, and I think it's important here for me to discuss this at this juncture in discussing the meaning of life. So let's cover this. Suffering itself is meaningless, okay? If we're just suffering to suffer, there's no point in that. And I've heard this for years and years and years, is that the key is to give meaning to our suffering. And two prime examples in our country of people, of families, of loved ones trying to give meaning to suffering are MADD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and DADD, right, Dads Against Drunk Driving. These are persons who have suffered horrifically with the loss of sons and daughters to drunk drivers. In my work as a clinical psychologist, this is a big part of it. I talk to clients about this, and I've said it, so many times on here that, I've done this work for 31 years now of working with parents who've lost kids. And the key is to give meaning to that suffering. If not, we're just suffering to suffer. And so we don't want that. So I wanted to make sure I got that in there to address that third possible source, which is courage during difficult times. I don't, Frankel doesn't want this. I don't want people, let's get into difficult, courageous times so I can be, no, let's not just get into suffering or tough times. Let's not have to do that if we don't have to. Now, the way that I wanted to wrap up tonight's Psychology Corner is just to say that, again, consistent with me wanting to put them into grad school here, so to speak, is I just want our listeners to ponder on these three sources of meaning. Just what do they think? Process it, think about it. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And I'll talk further next week on one of Frankel's perhaps most enduring insight per Rabbi Harold Kushner, and he is the person who wrote the foreword to the most recent edition of Man's Search for Meaning. And so I do really like what he has to say here about, Frankel's most enduring insight. So we'll share that. We'll keep going further and really start to tease this out of what perhaps is the meaning of life. So hopefully it keeps people interested, keeps our listeners thinking, Aaron, keep those brain juices flowing, and will ultimately make them good psychologists, like my professor said. Make your clients good psychologists. Here, we are making our listeners good psychologists, Aaron.
And that you are, my friend. You're making me a good one, too. So. Right. Now, if somebody wants to reach out and talk to you about your Psychology Corner, about Star Wars, about where to find me to stone me for not liking the episode initially, how would they go about doing that?
Yes, I would be more than happy to direct them to you.
I'm sure you will, especially after the dad joke of the week tonight.
Oh, no. Okay, so I'm enduring suffering. I have to give meaning to my suffering with these dad jokes. But no, same as always, Twitter X, that's what I guess I've been calling it. That is still at David_Modders, Modders. And then Instagram is just simply my name. Take a look at it, and you can see a lot of Star Wars content from this summer in Florida and California.
Very good. Very good. And of course, if you want to talk to me, the best way place, Care Best. The best place to do that, of course, is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at TAHarris121079. You can hit me up there anytime, anywhere, and we'll have some fun. David, brother, are you ready?
I am ready. Even after that very deep episode of Ahsoka, yes, I'm ready.
Well, here we go. It's time for this week's Star Wars Dad Joke of the Week. David, what goes thump?
I don't know what goes thump.
An Imperial officer that made the mistake of laughing at Vader.
Do you just leave the worst ones for me? It seems like Christina's on, Greg's on, and like ones, and they're like, "Oh, those are kind of good." And me, you just kind of just you just save these for me, don't you?
I just save them the best I can. Well, maybe this one will make you feel better.
Okay.
Why should you never tell jokes on board the Falcon?
Ooh, I don't know. Why should you never tell jokes on the Falcon?
Because the ship may crack up.
Oh. That's actually kind of good. Okay.
All I can hear now is Han going, "Come on, baby, hold together."
That's right. Well, that was good. I noticed you're throwing 2 out here periodically.
On occasion, when it's that bad, I will throw a second one out there. Because some of them can get pretty bad. I'll admit, some of them are pretty. Some of them can be beyond cheesy.
Yes,
so
yes.
those times I may throw a second one out. So, and that one was pretty rough, but pretty cheesy. That was sharp cheddar, not real mild. So, all right, buddy, David, my friend, I had a blast.
I did too, buddy. Great episode.
Great episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening in tonight. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Y'all are the best. Take care of each other. Be nice to somebody. And like we said, if you need help, get help. Help is always just a call away. So we love y'all. We're praying for you. Remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@starwarsreactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.starwarsreactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.